Oh,
I wasn't going to show it to anybody, but hey, go nuts, buddy.
You do you. So anyway, all right, we're live. We're good.
Let's go. All right. Welcome to the Elk Season Podcast, Season 2, Episode 9 this time,
Episode
for sure.
9.
For sure. And we are the Chambers Brothers. My name is Harold.
I'm David.
And today on the Elk Season Podcast.
Wolves.
Again, a lot of wolves. A big one-to-one talk on wolves.
We need to sit down. We need to have the talk.
We need to have the talk, please.
We have water everywhere, and there's more on the way.
Yeah.
Here in Idaho.
It's so big. It's so big.
Hunter safety. So
Yeah.
we took a week off for hunter safety, and I've got two.
You've tripled the number of bow hunters in your house.
Yeah, and we'll talk about what that's like, and really a lot of great things to say about the hunters education opportunities in Idaho.
Yeah.
And so we'll come to
So
that
great.
later.
That's so great. I wish I would have gone with you. That sounded like fun, actually.
Yeah, I thought about checking in and say, hey, you want to go? But it was too little too late, and maybe I was just having too much fun by myself. But
That's all right. That's all right. I know I'll get to go. Ozzy, I have a 6-year-old. He will definitely take hunter safety, and I will take it. I will take it with him. I can't wait.
yeah, it's and I have one more round to go. So
Oh, do you?
and-
Oh, yeah.
And also, so my oldest took hunter safety
Yeah.
at 10 when they lowered the limit.
Yeah.
And so he retook it because it was a combo course to get his bow stand.
Yeah.
But apparently, one of the people I was talking to in there had a child that was younger than 10 because they lowered the age again.
Really?
And so I actually don't have 100% on that, but it seems like they lowered the age younger than 10.
We need sportsmen. We need sportsmen.
And I'm not opposed to that. And actually, I've had some thoughts about hunter safety and how it might even complement in the work that I do and the work that
Yeah.
I don't know if there's wiggle room for what my thoughts are, but when we get to that, I'll talk
Sure.
about it more. But
Sure.
badgers are in the news, and a little story about buffalo. Just a point
Badgers
of
or
consideration.
Wolverines?
I meant to say wolverine.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Wolverines are great.
Just making sure you're paying attention. You passed the test. Thanks for playing.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
And even elk.
Oh yeah, it is an elk podcast. I've got an interesting story about a trophy elk. So that I learned from Hunter's Ed.
Man, yeah.
So we'll come back to that. And where do we want to start?
Let's start with the water. The water out west is a really big deal, and there's so much of it. Now, if you look at this map of the West, you can see that the Sierra Nevadas and Utah, which were a couple of the driest regions a year ago.
Yeah.
The driest, the most dire conditions along the Colorado, including Lake Powell and Lake Mead, was so serious. And the Central Valley in California, which is historically drought stricken.
The Salt Lake was having it's starting. I think they said it was 3 feet higher.
Yes, and the snow hasn't started to melt yet.
Yeah.
Lake Mead is rising, Lake Powell is rising, and the snow isn't melting yet.
Right. So one of the last times we had a water year like this was 1983.
Yes.
And so I actually saw a headline I wasn't able to follow up on where people are trying to take action to avoid what happened in 83. And that's it. That's a cliffhanger. I don't have any more information on that headline because I want to know what they're doing or what they're thinking.
Well,
and so
I read a book. I read a book about what happened in 1983.
Yeah.
It was called The Emerald Mile. I know I've talked about it before. But what happened in 1983 was it got too hot too fast.
Yeah.
So people get together, figure out how to stop it from getting too hot too fast.
You know what they did in Switzerland in the 90s to try to keep their glaciers from melting so fast?
What?
They had these giant reflective tarps that they would put on.
Oh,
them.
yeah.
It didn't work.
No, it didn't work. And I do remember, and that's really what we're hoping, is that it just melts slower than we can. So we're looking at days. Right now, there was, I think, over this last weekend, just south of Twin Falls, 36 inches of snow. Now, the same year that they were running, they had to sandbag the streets of Salt Lake City so a river could run through the downtown Salt Lake City.
I actually saw a headline remembering that this morning.
Yeah.
And I failed to put the pieces together, but I now that you're saying that, that's what that was from.
They had to do similar emergency measures in Oakley the same year because the Oakley Dam was going to be breached. It was a very, very serious. Of course, well, you're not Salt Lake City, but there's going to be trouble. There's already a town underwater. They built buildings in a dry lake bed, thinking it's never going to fill up again, and you can't drive on the streets because it's water, and the homes are lost.
That's that, and it was the fourth largest inland freshwater lake. Before they diverted the water, and that's in California. So Lake, I can't remember.
I don't know the name. It doesn't sound familiar to me because it's never been a lake.
Well,
it's
it is
in my history. It's never been a lake
except in 1983.
Was it in 1983?
Well, there was a year where they talk about it like every so often. These water years happen, and so it's happened in the last 40, 50 years a few times. So, or not 50, 60 years, I guess, but.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet. Hold on.
Slow down.
It's only been 40 years since 1983.
Yeah.
Okay. The 100-year flood.
Yeah.
Every 40 years. We can handle it.
Yeah.
So, and I want to talk also too about the martini glass of a natural or of a man-made reservoir, right?
Okay.
You have this martini glass that's shaped, like a cone, like an upside down cone.
Yeah.
And that cone, if you look, I saw something on TikTok where a guy goes, he takes a martini glass and it's about, a quarter of an inch, maybe a half an inch, like not filled up. And he shows how that's half of the martini glass. Because it gets so broad. So I know we're getting some good reports right now. The lake is filling 3 or 4 feet, blah, blah, blah. But those reservoirs are martini glasses. And the more, it's going to take more and more water to keep raising that level higher and higher.
When you hear that it's raised another foot, there's so much more water in that foot than the previous foot.
Yeah, the acre feet is what you need to understand, and I barely have a concept of what that is.
But hearing 3 feet, that's a lot of water.
Oh, geez.
It's a lot of water.
Oh, geez.
I watched a YouTube channel this last winter season. I don't mean to monkey too much.
Yeah, we got some new equipment in here. I think I'm hearing my voice through your microphone.
Is
that just me? Yeah.
So what? So there's there's still some things I'm working on. It's not terribly distracting.
Well,
is it?
No. Make adjustments as you see fit.
So one of the things we practiced on yesterday as I was trying to figure out this equipment was that if I speak here, I would see that it would be recording through your microphone faintly.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Okay.
And so I was trying to monitor for that, but it's not the worst thing in the world at the moment. And again, for the most part, our tracks are separated, and that was the important part.
Okay.
But if we have to, we can revert to the old equipment because it was pretty tried and true. Didn't really have to mess with it.
Right.
But just trying to play with the new toy and see how it goes. We can always make adjustments because we're recording the software. Anyway, enough of that nerdiness. Just thinking about the amount of water in every foot. I mean, it baffles my mind. I used to not think much. I would think that it was more like a straight up and down glass and like, another foot, yay.
Yeah.
No. It's like the martini glass. That's a great analogy that you brought up because it's so much more than that.
Yeah. And they actually took, there was 7, I think the previous record was 700, 800 inches of snow. They're looking now at 900 or even 1,000 inches and breaking all those previous records. But in downtown Salt Lake, they measured out what that is. Right? That's a 7-story building.
Wow.
That's a lot of snow. They show this thing going all the way up, and you're like, oh, that's how much snow they have. And there's pictures circulating of guys standing next to the pulleys of a chairlift. Because the snow is all the way up on that chairlift.
I've seen tons of those.
If you fall out of that chairlift in the summertime, you will die or break your legs. It would be bad.
Yeah.
And now you can't even get in the chairlift because the snow's so deep.
Yeah, you'd be a glutton for punishment if that thing's rolling.
And in southeast Utah, there's no vegetation. There's nowhere for this water to go. There's nothing for this water to soak into. It's red rock.
Yeah.
It is going to run.
Yep.
It is going to run. It is going to move fast. And the story is unfolding right now. Don't worry. The Elk Season podcast will talk about it every single week because the water out west is very important to the ecology of the elk.
It's it's going to be something to witness, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and hopefully everybody's okay. There's already avalanches.
Yeah,
that have been happening. My neurofeedback technician said he was on his way to go skiing and he was stuck in traffic because of an avalanche.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's just and that's today. And in a week, it's going to be over 70 degrees there.
Yeah.
It is nuts. So, but hopefully it cools off. Remember what happened in 83 was, and I think cold weather went all the way into May. Cold weather and snow went all the way into May.
It feels like we're headed in a similar trajectory because we have a couple of days being warmed up here, and it's going to get cold again.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
which is okay, like I said, as long as that temperature doesn't come up too fast. But if all of a sudden that switch is turned and the pendulum swings, man, it's really going to be rough. So we totally can avoid what happened in 1983, not through anything we do, just with Mother Nature's grace.
Right.
That is all. That is really all. You say there's a headline saying we're going to stop this from happening, boy.
Well, I don't. The headline wasn't about stopping it from happening, but can we do something different
to protect ourselves?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's just like what can we do differently? Yeah,
prepare. And it's funny, and I have to note this: that the greatest technology we have against floods is bags full of sand.
Right, Mother Earth itself in a bag.
Yeah, it's just the greatest technology, and it's terrible. There are some other things that they're working on and doing, but
yeah. There's been some technology out there that I've tried to get for the last house I lived in because you drive your vehicle into the garage, it's got covered with snow, the snow melts and it would puddle the way that garage was.
Oh,
where
yeah.
I live south of town.
Yeah.
It wouldn't drain out, it wouldn't go towards the door, and so it would just pool up. And so we're using towels all the time if we come home after driving in the snow. And so what I've learned, but I couldn't at the time, I couldn't find them. I think you can find them more now.
Yeah.
Were these black things that they're these like black bags with a certain stuff in them that will soak up the water and they'll expand and get bigger.
Yeah, they expand and somehow they're heavier than water, so they don't float away.
And so in this case, I just wanted to be out there to soak up this dumb water, and then I could go wring it out later.
Yeah. So as much as Salt Lake and Southeast Utah is going to have problems, and the Oroville Dam again, which was it almost overflowed, almost broke down in 2017, was almost completely dry last year. Now we got to worry about dams like that and that one breaching again this year.
Sorry, I don't know why my brain says that I need to amend what you just said.
Yes.
The Oroville Dam did overflow.
Yes.
You said it didn't. You said it almost did.
What I meant was a breach of it. I mean,
and I think I knew that's what you meant. Yeah. My brain goes, he said that wrong. I watched that.
Okay.
Anyway, it's so dumb.
But also locally and the Oakley Dam, which is a super cool place. But
it makes me wonder if our Salmon Falls Reservoir will fill up to where it spills over again for the first time in a while. Because you have drone footage of the last time, which was the first time in like 60 years or whatever.
Yeah, I do. And, our sister had a snow day yesterday from school in Dietrich.
Okay. Yeah.
And Hollister had a snow day.
Wow.
We didn't get any snow.
No.
There's a few flakes in the air.
Just this bunch of stupid wind.
So I don't know if those storms actually hit the Jarbidge. The Jarbidge Mountains.
Yeah.
Because the Jarbidge is where Oakley or where Salmon Falls did fill up. So it'll be interesting to see. But everywhere there's lots of snow. You look to the Sawtooths and there's no rocks visible. It's just white.
Yep.
Which is rare any time of the year. So water is the story, and it's here. It just hasn't melted yet.
Yep. Anyway, to be continued. What's next?
Wolves. I want to get right into wolves because I want to talk a lot about them.
I saw a couple things on wolves.
It's a Chat GPT prompt.
You want to start there?
Yeah,
okay.
I had a conversation with somebody, and I've had conversations recently with more than one person about how the wolves that were reintroduced were not. How they don't belong here. They were not.
It was the timber wolf. We need the gray wolf. That's what I've heard people argue.
Right. Exactly. And you're right. But they're all the same species.
Yeah.
Canis lupus.
Yeah.
They're all the same species, Canis lupus. Okay.
But one's a timber wolf, one's a gray wolf.
But
I'm just saying.
I know.
That's the sticking point.
So please, if you can, I gave ChatGPT a prompt. Please read the prompt for us and then read what ChatGPT said.
Okay. What's the difference between the wolves that were reintroduced in Idaho and Yellowstone and the historic wolves that were killed off after Western expansion? I like that prompt. That's a good prompt.
Okay, thank you.
The wolves that were reintroduced in Idaho and Yellowstone are genetically the same species as the historic wolves that were killed off after the Western expansion, which is the gray wolf, Canis lupus. However, there are some differences in their behavior and distribution. Before the arrival of the European settlers, gray wolves were once found throughout most of North America, including the western United States. However, with the expansion of the human settlements and livestock production, wolves were seen as a threat and systematically hunted and killed. By the 1930s, wolves had been it's a weird word. I haven't seen that word before. Wolves had been extirpated.
Okay.
Completely eliminated. I guess
yes.
You could have just said that, ChatGPT, from the western United States. In the mid-1990s, efforts were made to reintroduce wolves to Yellowstone National Park and central Idaho. The wolves reintroduced to these areas were sourced from populations in Canada and Alaska. These wolves were selected for genetic diversity and behavioral characteristics that would help them adapt to their new environments. Since the reintroduction, these wolves have formed new packs and reestablished their roles as top predator in ecosystems of Yellowstone and central Idaho. They have also been observed exhibiting different behaviors than historic wolves due to their adaptations to different prey and habitat availability. Interesting note there.
Yeah. Thank you, ChatGPT.
Overall, the difference between the reintroduced wolves and the historic wolves that were killed off is primarily due to changes in the ecological and social context in which the wolves exist, as well as genetic diversity introduced by reintroduction efforts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So first of all, let's go step by step here. And let's say that the wolves that were in Canada, which were in Alberta, the Carter Niemeyer book called Wolfer, he went from Helena, Montana up into Alberta, and it was 30 miles over the border. If you can show me how those wolves belong in Alberta and Canada and somehow are genetically distinctly different from from across the border in Montana, because wolves were in Montana. They did not reintroduce wolves to Montana. They were introduced to Idaho and Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And eventually some were reintroduced in Montana.
Yeah.
But they were already in Montana. They were in northern Montana and in Glacier.
Yeah.
Glacier National Park. So that's the first issue is when people say, "Oh no, they're different kind of wolves." Well, how can they be different? And how do the wolves know where the Canadian border is?
Yeah.
Right? So, and also the Canadians, when Carter Niemeyer went to get those, because I'm going to pay you $1,500 for a live wolf, they were just dumbstruck. Why do you want these things back? They're a pest. They're a nuisance. And so he proved himself, and he got some wolves. But some of them did come from Alaska, and we've talked about the genetic diversity and how you need to be different. Animals are different up further north. It's colder. They need to be bigger. The moose are bigger. There's no elk up there. There's caribou, which are built for the cold and built for the snow. And the moose are so much bigger. There's muskox and there's bison. And so genetically, the wolves have to be bigger and stronger.
Yep.
And so it's easy to see, different wolf.
Yeah.
Different wolf.
Yep.
Okay, so now I want to do a thought experiment.
Okay.
Here's my thought experiment. Let's take some whitetail from Ohio and let's move them to Montana. Let's say there's a county in Montana completely wiped out. I think you could guess the difference between whitetail in Ohio and whitetail in Montana. Right?
Possibly.
I don't think it's even possible. You think...
I think that the whitetail from back east are going to be smaller.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are. Living in the Rockies, it was sometimes you would see whitetail and you'd be like, "Oh, that's almost as big as a muley."
Yeah.
They're big.
Yeah.
They're much bigger. And we spent time driving around in Lincoln.
Yeah. Oh, tons of time.
Those deer were not little deer.
That's what I remember. They were pretty sizable. Even my young memory kind of remembers that about them.
Okay, so let's say Lincoln, Montana. Oh no,
Where's the whitetails?
All the whitetail are killed, and we need to bring whitetail in from Ohio. What's going to happen to those whitetail? Well, some of them are going to die. They're not going to make it. But subsequent generations are going to be bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
And the same thing would happen if chronic wasting disease wiped out all the whitetail in Ohio. You could take some from Montana, big, brawny, and they would love them for the first few years. But eventually, those populations would become the same size because they have a different ecology.
So, yeah, actually, there was research, comprehensive research done on one of the Galapagos Islands, and a lot of people refer to them as the Darwin Finch studies.
Yes, yes.
That just showed that within a species, there are genetic adaptations that will emerge depending on the circumstance of the environment.
Yeah.
And so I'd never really thought about that before. And so
Me either, until ChatGPT.
And so it stands to reason, they're eventually going to just be more in tune with their environment because of the adaptation that's already in their genetics because they're the same species.
Yeah. So the wolves, and so I think that's what's causing a lot of this confusion is that those wolves were bigger and were stronger, but they were needed for genetic diversity.
Yeah.
And it is not advantageous to be big and heavy when you're chasing elk.
No.
Elk can run faster than caribou.
Yeah.
And so they're going to die if they're bigger and stronger. If they're made for hunting moose and caribou mostly.
Unless you have something that's slower than an elk.
Right.
A cow. And
yes.
And therein lies the problem.
But
a problem.
Right, but those animals have been really taught well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those populations have been taught and understood that it is not genetically beneficial to attack livestock, right? You get shot at, you get trapped. If you're trouble, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And so any interaction between, and this is going to be the story in Colorado.
Yeah.
This is going to be it for the next 15 years.
Only 15 years? I mean, come on, man. Don't sell them short.
This argument is so frustrating to hear that there was the wrong kind of wolves.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. If we took Minnesota timber wolves and brought them over here, right, which are a little bit smaller and not made for hunting elk.
Yeah.
Well, they're made for hunting moose.
Yeah.
They hunt a lot of moose over there. Are they bigger and stronger? Well, those are gray wolves, not Canadian wolves, not timber wolves.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is. So anyways, it was an interesting conversation that I had, and I was prompted to prompt GPT to say, am I missing something here? I've always been on the side of, you guys are crazy. Why do I have to keep having this conversation?
Yeah.
And not that this is the end of it.
No.
Not by a long shot, I'm sure.
And there's a fair enough, there's probably going to be enough people rather that are like, well, ChatGPT is not something I can trust. So that being your source,
there's
and
definitely
prompt
that.
is going to be, nope, sorry, I can't do it.
And as an Idahoan, my belief is, and the understanding is, they are now pest level. There are 1,500 wolves, and there should be 500.
Yeah.
And we need more active management. And we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah. Active predator management as much as we have. And yeah.
And they're good predators. They're really good at what they do. And they're good at multiplying. Right? Mm-hmm. If there's enough food. But we don't. This is the elk season podcast. We want those elk for human hunters. We want elk tags. Yes, I want the wolves in the ecosystem. I think they belong here. But I also want more elk tags. So Colorado, with as much money as they make on elk tags, is going to have a dip.
But if it's done right, you'll have a healthier population.
Yes, you will. You will. And you'll have a lot fewer road hunters.
Yeah.
I watch people on YouTube like sitting in a tree stand with their binoculars watching elk through one side and watching golfers on the other.
Wow.
Okay? Because that's how close they are. That's how close they inhabit. Yeah, it's crazy. Now they're bow hunters.
Yeah.
So the golf course probably wants them gone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was a story brought to my awareness when I was in Pocatello working with a couple guys that had once worked at a golf course in, I think it was Flagstaff area.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to keep, they talked about how they would have to go and shuffle the elk off the turf because they have golfers come through.
Yeah. So anyways, it's management in all things, and it'll be interesting. And that video I watched was out of Colorado, and it wasn't the only one where it's there's a highway on one side and they're watching this traffic, and then there's elk on this other.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of elk in Colorado.
Yeah. Here's an interesting segue to this wolf and the buffalo.
Yeah.
So I guess I should just read this, huh? Drowned bison fed a grizzly bear for several days before a wolf, photographed using a camera trap, moved in to take advantage of an easy kill. Mr. Blue, as he's known,
look at
for
that
his
wolf.
steely blue-gray coat. Yeah, he's quite.
Oh,
you're kind of like, even if you have a problem with wolves, you're like, that's a good boy.
That's
like,
a beautiful animal. When I see elk, though, I go, that's a beautiful animal. I would love the opportunity to kill that. Isn't that great?
I love the marking down his nose. That reminds me of the wolf I saw in Montana. Well, the wolf in Montana was darker, but he had that distinctive dark nose, and it was very much the wolf look. And you knew
so cool. It's so cool. And the reason I brought this story up is that a lot of grizzlies come out of hibernation, and they look for these. They look for these river kills. They look for whatever died in the winter.
Yeah.
And it's basically in cold storage until the bears come out of hibernation. Mm-hmm. So,
and speaking of bison, just to throw this story out there, it was a story I read by Tom Woodbury. I believe he's Native American. I didn't vet the author and where he's from, but he wrote this like he's part of the Native American tribal community. So just the level of knowledge and the way that he talked, it made me go, okay. And maybe he mentioned in there, I just don't remember, but talking about the management system for the Yellowstone buffalo not being where it could be, and that there's a lot of places in the United States where buffalo could and should exist to help those ecological systems. If as much as we want to reintroduce wolves, we should consider the other animals that we should also put back into those systems.
The ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah. So it's kind of along those promotions, promotes along those lines, along with some other tribal things that are important and I think necessary. Instead of just culling a bunch of animals, why do we? I think the story's coming back to me now. So when animals go out of Yellowstone, they cull them. They just kill them all.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we group them up, transplant them somewhere where they can go thrive and live and be, so an interesting promotion.
And they have done that, not to the extent that they probably could have, but there's a really big problem with bison, and that is a barbed wire fence can't hold them. Mm-hmm. Not a regular barbed wire fence.
Right.
You need something big. And if the bison get out and they could possibly infect local populations of cattle to brucellosis and other diseases. Yeah.
So the brucellosis thing, my understanding
was that false flag thing?
My understanding is that the brucellosis from the buffalo is an overblown tactic for the argument to not let them out of Yellowstone. Because I understand that elk populations who are also infected with brucellosis.
Okay.
Right? And think about where we went in Montana. It's a ranch and there's a bunch of cattle and the elk would come down. So you have much more chance of elk infecting brucellosis.
And elk can just go over a fence.
Yeah.
So a real problem then is bison go through the fence.
I guess all I'm saying is I'm not a big fan of the brucellosis argument.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to me because of the elk population.
I think I remember that. I haven't thought about it much or studied it much.
Yeah.
But
it's ringing a bell. I didn't mean to throw you on your heels.
No, it's ringing a bell.
Just in case. And again, I could be wrong. I mean, I was just having a conversation about how the 50-50 divorce rate in the United States.
Yeah.
Total farce. It's actually like 30 to 35%. But that's where I'm at right now. Do you know where Idaho is on the divorce rate?
No.
Where do you think it falls in the top 50? One being the most divorces, one being the least, or 50 being the least.
Oh, let's go with a high number. Let's say 35.
Third.
Really?
Idaho's third.
The third most divorces per marriage?
I think it's 18 or 19 divorces per 1,000.
Really? Fascinating.
Does that equate 50% divorce rate? 19 out of 1,000 marriages?
No.
Right? So just saying.
Wow.
I'm trying to understand the metrics they're using to throw that at us. So what I can determine, it seems like in whole, the American... This has nothing to do with elk season, unless your wife doesn't like you elk hunting.
The wolves don't get married.
Or your husband doesn't like you elk hunting. So anyway, that came out of nowhere. I don't know why. I guess the way
people play with statistics and
stories
numbers
and it just comes across and it's misleading and it's So anyway, so out of the buffalo into we have gear. We have cats again.
Yeah.
Cats.
So this is a follow-up.
Yeah.
Because we talked about this story, the same picture.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They have been euthanized now.
I see that. They just couldn't come. They couldn't. Wouldn't stay away. But the snow is pushing them down.
It is. And I think that I heard this statistic somewhere that every mountain lion that has ever attacked a human is dead, was killed, was found and killed.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a pretty good statistic. So, right. And so eventually there's going to be cats that would never bother a human. Genetically, it's not a safe thing to do, right? Survival of the fittest means live to reproduce. And if you do something that causes you to stop reproduction, then that's why they call it the Darwin Award, right? You can no longer reproduce. And that's a problem for a species. If you bother cattle, you're going to get shot. You're going to get harassed, and it's going to be dangerous, and that is not advantageous for the species.
Right.
So anyways, these were euthanized.
Yeah.
And you get too close to home, and it is dangerous. Yep. It's dangerous. They're dangerous animals. I have a TikTok that I didn't get a chance to show you because I was scrolling through it too fast. Yeah. But here comes a jogger down a road, and it's from a Ring camera. The jogger's coming down the road, and you can see the cat go up the porch. It's a mountain lion. Yeah. It's a full-grown mountain lion. And just park underneath a bush and just watch that jogger go by. And that jogger has no idea.
Yeah. So when I drew...
Scary. I don't know.
When I drew in 55, I bought a rifle. I went up there. And I was walking the roads that are up there.
Yeah.
And I had Draven with me at one point. Just one time. He doesn't remember. I was asking him the other day because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I took you up there. Now I remember that I did because I had him up there with me one weekend. We didn't see anything. I actually tripped on a log pretty bad, and that was not good. Luckily, I was fine. Just a bruise on my arm or whatever. But I could have twisted my ankle real bad. And we were in how the trees fell in those forests back there.
Bad.
We were just trying to make a quick shortcut, and it was just not good.
That is, if I want to take a picture of a quagmire, that's what that is.
So when I came back a week later without him, I'm hiking up that same road, and there was a huge pile of cat scat in the road.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, and he was half the size he is now. I mean, he's 16 now. You give him, because that was 2015. We're 8 years removed. He's such a small kid, and cats are dangerous. And you found we have those videos that have popped up in the last 10 years of people like hiking out and about. Like the guy was it here in Idaho, and he saw that a cat crossed the road with her cubs.
Yeah.
And so he started to back out, but she was already alerted to him, so she started chasing him, and he's walking backwards.
Oh yeah,
And it's just like, geez. So having to euthanize cats, there must be something different with cats than other predator species that we have to be.
They're just so stealthy.
Yeah,
they're so stealthy. You don't know where they're going to pop up next. They're in a. Today on my radio show, I asked ChatGPT, "Hey, how many? Give me a list of 15 famous people with residences in the Wood River Valley."
Okay,
right. So I just want to see and I talked about it.
This is a DJ's dream.
Everybody, I know. Everybody's like, everybody knows Schwarzenegger, and I've seen Schwarzenegger up there a couple times, and Demi Moore and Bruce Willis. But there's some other ones. I forget them. But, hey, there's a lot of rich and famous people that live up there. If cats can just disappear and then reappear in somebody's window well, or at an elementary school, that's really serious. That's lockdown stuff. And Fish and Game just doesn't want that problem. So they're going to go ahead and get rid of those cats. And it's sad because that was a mom and a cub.
Yeah. I saw the family resemblance in the picture.
You can tell.
Wolverines?
Sure. I just like talking about wolverines. They're such a reclusive creature, and it's so rare to ever spot them. And as soon as I say that, everywhere I look, I see wolverines, at least in the media.
Yeah. I think it's really cool because they were more of a mystery until we started talking about them.
Yeah.
And there's been things we've seen out and about that we're like, I wonder if that's related to wolverine behavior or activity. Like a den.
I feel pretty strongly.
Or could it have been a wolf den?
Yeah, it could have been. Because there was a lot of wolf activity up there.
Yeah.
Gosh, dang it. Now I'm second guessing that.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
So it's kind of like bittersweet there.
Yeah.
And we know the hillside where that den's at. If it's still there, it's probably still used.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just can't. We didn't pinpoint it, but you just traverse that side. We should have gone up that hill after that elk.
Yes, we should have.
That I was being stubborn about.
I actually showed that video to a guy.
Yeah.
At the gym. He goes, "Oh, why didn't you go after him? Once you got him spotted, man, that's 90%. That's 90%. You go after him."
And I'm afraid to hear what you said to him after that because I know it's my fault.
I should have pushed harder. I should have said that to you. I didn't. If I would have known better, I'd been like, yeah, but there's elk all over that place.
Well, that was the day that I was really just I didn't have time, and so going up and getting him wasn't really the question. It was the amount of time that I really just didn't have where we were at to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm thinking.
That's all right.
Yeah, if we had though, the trail's just right down on the other side of the. Dang it!
I know.
I
know. It's
hindsight.
Hey, hindsight, buddy. Yeah, it's all right. Next time won't happen like that.
Hindsight.
We'll have no excuses next time.
Yeah, he was probably a trophy. He was a big bull.
He was so pretty.
Such a big boy.
Yeah.
So let me transition to hunter safety here.
Okay.
And then we'll do gear as sort of the fallout.
Great.
In my hunter safety class, not mine, but my boys' hunter safety class, I sat with them all week. It was 3 hours a night. It's a hybrid class. So before we get to the details of the class and what I learned from the class, it has to do with elk. But here in Idaho, they offer combo classes.
Right.
And that's pretty cool because I had to do hunter's ed and then I had to do bow hunter's ed. And it's double the amount of time in that format. So they've combined the courses after all these years, and now you can take hunter's ed and bow hunter's ed all together, which I think is really, really good.
Right.
It seems like a majority of people are looking to get possibly the rifle hunter's ed, but there was actually several people in this course that were like, "We're here to bow. We're here to bow hunt."
Right on.
And so I thought that was pretty cool.
Archery elk is the greatest outdoor sport in North America. Want to try it again? Archery elk is the greatest outdoor sport in North America.
It's been 2 weeks. I'm sorry. So sitting in this class, and it was $10 per head for somebody taking. Now, I was really impressed that Idaho Fish and Game have actually done. They offer online. So if you just don't have time to go to a class, you can go a self-paced course. But it does, it kind of comes in in comparison prices. It's a bit of more of a premium price.
It is. Yeah.
It's going to be $30 to do rifle hunter's ed. It's going to be another $30-ish to do bow hunter's ed, if I remember seeing the price details right, because it's all automated and you go through it and it's self-paced. That's great. But I think especially for my boys, I wanted them to go through an experience kind of like what I had, being in a classroom, having an instructor, and kind of having to go through those processes. So, but that said, the instructor showed during the week a picture of a guy on Outdoor Life has this trophy bull, but apparently he couldn't get it through his house doorway or something, and so he cut it down.
That's a rough problem. That's a rough problem to have. I hate it when that happens.
He cut it down the center of the skull, and then he put it back together, but he lost his record because it tampered with the size.
The spread, yeah.
So anyway,
that's a bummer of a story, man.
But the class brought up some interesting things, and I had questions. And I had questions because I just want to make sure I know.
Right. And you took notes.
I took notes, man.
I like that.
So the first day of class, I'm like, hey, is there an extra book that I can have so I can help my kids study? That's what I actually said, but you know what? It was for me. Anyway, it's a really well put together manual. Got the test questions in the back. It's got the animals and identification. It's just a little bit better than it used to be in terms of color and organization, and it's great.
Wow.
And it tells you which is protected and what's not. So all birds of prey are protected in I think the United States, but
and it's a shame, they're delicious. I'm kidding.
You go offshore far enough, you can have some. Anyway, so that was really cool. But we had a fish and game officer come and talk to the class for Thursday night of the class. I had some questions. Really, one of the questions I was hoping to get answered was about lighted knocks. We talked about it last year, and it's one thing seeing it in the news, but for whatever reason, my trust is like, it's hard to just trust what I read.
Oh, yeah, so especially in the news.
I'm like, and these are press releases from the Fish and Game. I'm having trouble even trusting their own press releases.
Well, how do you know it's their press release?
Because it came from their app that I have.
Okay, there you go.
So, but it's just for whatever reason, I want to talk to a person because that's the generation I am. So here we have this guy in the class, and luckily the instructor was also like really gung ho from day one. Like when we see our fish and game officer, our law enforcement officer, we want to ask him a question about lighted knocks. Are they legal?
Right.
I'm like, I know they are, but I just want to hear it from the horse's mouth. Right.
Right.
But I also had a question about mechanical broadheads.
Yeah.
I don't want to use mechanical broadheads per se. I want to research them more.
Yeah.
But I wasn't the only one who was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure mechanical broadheads are legal. The instructor was sort of getting back into teaching the class, so he thought they were still illegal, but we were able to ask and clarify as a group, and yeah, they are legal in Idaho. It feels a little bit weird when you have new things to be able to have lighted knocks, though. What we talked about and what we read about in terms of what lighted knocks can help us do in terms of following the arrow, that's exactly what the law enforcement officer said. You know, to help you follow your shot better. And I go, I could have saved $50. I've lost 2 arrows on the hillside. I thought I was following them, but then they just kind of disappear, and you just can't see it. So I have no doubt that I would have had a better chance of finding those arrows had I just been able to watch where it went, and it'll stay lit.
And if it's stuck in something that was moving, that light would show you. Yeah, it would help show you.
So it's really cool that we are able to do that. We still can't have anything electronic connected to our bow. Right. Like you can't have a lighted sight, but those two things are.
What about an Apple AirTag? Find my arrow.
Right. That's funny.
Right. Well,
and I actually, so now I want to get some lighted knocks. That's high on my list.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're expensive. They're like $30-$40.
Okay.
And so I realized, okay, well, I want to use them to practice, but not all the time. I want to get some so I kind of know what they look like. I can learn how to follow the shot, but I watched a video about guys talking about how, like, if you don't want to buy them for all of your arrows because that can get expensive, you want to be able to use knocks that are the same weight as a lighted knock because it's not going to have the same weight. And so I was like,
make a difference.
Yeah. So there's, you get the lighted knocks, you weigh them on a scale, and you take your other knocks and find what the difference is. And then a cheap trick is just finding a small screw that you can screw into the hollow of the other knock. And you weigh it, and then you grind down the screw until you get it to the weight that is the next. So then you can practice having the arrow consistency at all distances. So that was a cool trick. So I'm going to probably buy 3 and start working on it.
So they're $30 each?
$30 for a package of 3. They're like $10 a pop.
Okay, all right.
Which, it was like $5 for a package of like 20 plastic knocks. So the cost of my arrow went from 25 to 35.
Yeah,
with that, right? So.
Is that including the price of the broadhead?
$35 is including the price of the broadhead, the shaft,
and the knock,
not to count the fletchings that I've been redoing. But those can be pricey.
Yeah.
But what I've done, I just kind of call it it's an expendable thing. The fletchings are
right.
The fletchings are
negligible price.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what's considered antlerless? Antlerless animals in Idaho.
I think it's 4 inches or less.
6.
Is it 6? Okay.
6 inches.
Okay.
So,
but it's not necessarily antlerless.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a whitetail in Lincoln with, I swear, an 1.5-inch nub. And going, oh, that could be my first buck.
I meant to ask the question, what do you do? Because they always talk about evidence of sex attached to the animal's carcass if you carry it out.
Yeah.
But when you have a genetic mutation where you thought you killed a buck, but it's a doe with a genetic mutation antler, and I failed to remember to ask that question because I think it's a relevant question. And it's happened. It's happened many times before. But just what do you do in that situation? You thought you killed a buck.
Well, that's why they don't ask you. That's why your tag is not for a male or female.
Okay, antlered or antlerless.
Yeah,
yeah.
So yes, evidence of sex. Is it antlered? Great, it's antlered.
It's more for their
There's
information.
for your tag.
Yeah.
Now I need evidence of sex. It doesn't have to be male or female if it's antlered.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's the distinction, I think.
So antelope grow horns.
Yes, they do,
and they don't shed their horns, right?
That's what I thought.
I'm making you wonder, huh?
Yeah.
So according to the Fish and Game officer,
yeah,
antelope horns will shed by growing in under the existing horn, and they'll shed an outer sheath.
Okay.
And the outer sheath is so thin and frail that we don't find them.
Yeah.
Because they disintegrate too quick.
Really? Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I'm just like, whoa.
Wow. So like molts.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, like a molting.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be like a compact hair, right?
Yeah.
But I've seen horns, traditional horns, different than antlers, and the horns are hollow. So interesting. So another one grows inside that. Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. I all these years, and if that holds true, I mean, I don't have any reason to doubt. I mean, he's the guy that works in the field, and
yeah.
Right. So, due diligence. If you kill an animal, or if you shoot an animal and it runs off and gets on private property, you're supposed to go to the private property landowner and say, "Hey, can I retrieve my animal?"
Right.
What do you do when they say no?
Right. Right. What do you do if they say no? Because you're legally bound.
Yes.
To do everything you can. If you do everything you can and the landowner says no, then you've done everything you can. I would guess.
You have experienced due diligence.
Yes.
And, it wouldn't be bad to just call the Fish and Game and say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the situation. What should I do? Let them know. And then if they need to follow up or do anything else. Right.
Yeah.
So don't, sometimes it's like, well, what do I do? Or I just go get another animal. I think the first thing to do is if they said no to retrieving the animal, call Fish and Game.
Yeah.
Call the Fish and Game. They will help you figure out the next step.
Right.
So,
and let you know if you're in any trouble or,
I didn't want to hog all the questions
be.
to this Fish and Game officer, so I didn't ask all. Yeah. So that's why I probably didn't remember the other question. I had another question regarding, the way that we changed the trespassing law in Idaho, and what concern. So the trespassing law in Idaho, so they don't have to mark. I understood that on these long stretches of fences they no longer have to mark them the same.
Oh, right.
And,
okay.
And it can be a shoot first, ask questions later kind of. That's what I kept seeing in headlines. So I wanted clarity. I wanted clarification.
You mean the landowner could shoot you for trespassing?
Yes.
Okay.
You're hunting illegally on my land. Shh. Boom.
Right. Right. You should do your due diligence before you go hunting and know whether whose land you're on.
But if you accidentally,
right,
or if you're in a situation you're just like, I got to get to the nearest road, and I just the safest thing for me to do is to cross this land. I think it's a rare situation kind of thing. But if you have overzealous landowners, I was just concerned about that.
And I've seen them. I've seen them. Yeah. And they're nervous for a reason.
Yeah.
So
we found a dead head of a mountain goat.
Yes, we did, and we left it there.
Yeah, we left it there.
Yeah,
and that's wise, I think.
You think so? I wanted to bring it home.
I know you did. What we could have done and or should have done.
Yeah.
Because I said, if you find, in the world of big game animals, when you have the specialty animals like the ram, you find a dead head, we got to call Fish and Game so you can come and investigate. But what do you do if you find a dead head for a mountain goat?
Yeah.
And he goes, take pictures, take coordinates if you can.
Okay.
Give us a call.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess in that instance, and he seemed less confident about mountain goats than he did mountain sheep.
Okay.
So, but he said it would probably be wise to do that. And in that learning process, if it's different than that, you can learn along that way. And if you've kept those coordinates, it's all there, and you were hopeful to retrieve it, and you find out you could have, you can ask if that's still a possibility after they've conducted their investigation.
Okay, that's a good way to go. Okay.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
So
I like that answer. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a tedious process, but hey, if you don't know, call. I think that's the biggest thing I'm taking away from all this. If you just don't know, call and ask.
Right. Every time I've asked Fish and Game, they've always been open book, nice as can be. Just want to educate the public.
The Hunter's Education wants us to get it right. and Idaho Fish and Game want us to get it right.
Yeah.
Because they want to be able to keep people having a safe, fun outdoor experience that we can all share. And it's people who don't ask and don't follow up that kind of start to ruin it for a whole lot of people. So always just ask and get involved. So did you know? Sorry, another thing that I took notes on. I don't know if this is legit. I haven't heard of this before, and I thought I got to talk to you about this, see if you've heard about this. So the hunter's ed teacher talked about people having arrows with strings.
Okay.
Like on long reels that are not for fishing.
Okay.
That'll go through the animal, and it'll help me track the animal.
Yeah. Okay.
Seems a bit weird to me.
Okay.
But it's not something that is out of my realm of believing. I just never heard it before, and I was like,
I worked for I worked for a mining company back in 94, 95 maybe, spring of 95, and we had a walk chain, and you had to wear it on your hip, and it was a biodegradable string that came out of it, like a kite string, like cotton almost, but you could twist it like thread. It was really thin. And it would spool out, and you would measure, because we had to walk out mining claims, and we were making mining claims for this mining company. And so you had to walk 1,320 feet, which is like a quarter mile, and then you had to blaze a tree and do some markings and do all your notes. But I remember thinking, gosh, I never run out of string. There's so much string here. And so a contraption like that attached to your bow that could just... Yeah. It just pulls out. You'd know how far that arrow went, and whatever the arrow did.
Yeah.
So that's another way to follow your arrow.
Yeah. An interesting thing.
Fascinating.
So but before I get too far and forget, I just want to say, to the instructors, I don't know that any of them will ever hear this. I did talk to them about the podcast at one point. So while my boys were doing the walk around, I said, my brother and I do a podcast. We talk about all the things that we're talking about in class. But to the instructor Dan and the co-instructor Larry, thank you. You helped my boys get through to the next level that we were hoping for. We're going to be able to go out and do this fun activity. You donated your time. Dan's a veteran. Yeah. And so there was another vet in the class too that was taking his youngest son through, which I thought was pretty cool.
Nice.
And got to share shared stories in terms of like me not having been in military, but knowing how much military has influenced my life through my grandfather, through Jared, through my cousins, through your son being in the Air Force. Yeah. When I mentioned Air Force linguist for Farsi, I heard an audible whoa from one of them. So that was pretty cool. It's pretty fun to brag about my nephew that way.
Yeah, so. Yeah, for sure.
I've even said that in class. I'm like, I have a nephew who's a linguist in the military for Farsi, and some of my students speak Farsi. They're like, "Whoa, that's cool!" So,
well, when he comes in town, he can come in for a visit.
Yeah,
he really could. He really would. He loves it.
We have the capacity to have a third microphone now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
we have a capacity to go up to 8 microphones on this baby. The only limitation is A, the size of the room.
Yeah.
But B, the way that this channels the microphones, we'll have to team up microphones onto channels. It only does 2 channels at a time to my system.
Okay.
So you and I would be on one, and we have to get our volumes right. So and then so 2 people, and then 2. So it's a bit odd, but we can.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. Interesting. So good. Okay.
That was like I said.
I think we got a pretty good pace going with the podcast now, but I would love to have more perspectives and more stories from the trail. Yeah. When you talk about the instructors, I just think back to my experience. I took my bow hunter safety in Nampa, and the instructors were all the difference. Those human beings make the difference, and I just adore those people and the stories they tell, the wisdom. The wisdom so beyond knowledge. Anything you could
perspective
learn.
Is so important. Yeah. And we took our hunter safety in a place that wasn't where I expected, but being able to meet new people, sat at a table with people I've never met, and they actually said that they're moving to Nampa after this class is over, and so we're never going to see them again. But they were trappers.
Oh, cool!
And so he talked about trapping, and it was cool. Ted, I think was his name, and Dylan was his son, and. It was really cool to meet and talk with him, and didn't get to know everybody there, but just everything, the experience in whole was really cool. And I got to spend time with my kids, and it was in Buell, this class was. So I know it's on the side, but we were driving out of Buell, and I had promised them to go get lunch somewhere for their success in the class. And I'm already past the McDonald's and the Ridley's in Buell, and all of a sudden it hits me. Don's Thriftway has their donuts. I'm in Buell.
Yeah.
So in Buell, if you ever get to Buell, Idaho, there's Cloverleaf. But you can get Cloverleaf in Twin. But you can't get Don's Thriftway donuts in Twin. You have to go to Don's Thriftway.
Are they good? I don't think I've had.
I think they're great.
Wow.
Look, every place has its own spot. It's not to compare Don's to anything in Twin. It's just that, hey, if you're in Buell, here's a hidden gem.
Yeah.
Like, just go in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, I'm still on my scorched earth diet.
Sucker.
So I haven't had. Yeah, I know. I know. Well, you talk about getting to these plateaus, and it's so hard.
So that was part of why the weekend wasn't good to me. But But the boys got to choose these donuts. They're huge, and they were like, "Here's a reward for getting through the class." So.
And I went to a Reba McEntire concert. Oh, what a dream! Oh, it was so great.
Oh crap! Reba or donuts?
I know, and I had. Well, I was so excited. I told you I totally planned on staying 100% on my scorched earth diet.
Yeah.
As soon as I get into the stadium, the Idaho Center in Nampa, I look around. There's big pictures, and I go, man, the big pictures of Reba, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be such a good concert. I had to buy a beer. Yeah. I had to have a nice cold beer. Anyway, and so I did, and then floodgates are open. Watch out.
So let's talk gear.
Yeah.
Oh, just a few minutes left here. Be Bear Aware Starter Pack. What's that about? In Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, which makes sense they would be promoting this.
Yeah.
What do you know about the Beware Bear
Be
Starter
Bear
Pack?
Aware. I don't know. What does it say? Is there?
Well, it's just a bunch of pictures.
Oh, okay. What are the pictures?
Well, one is a back. Well, there's really no context here.
Okay.
I got you. Okay, I'm starting to put the pieces together. It took me a second.
Yeah.
So in one picture, it's a guy walking down the trail. He's got bear spray, which I'm a big advocate for.
Yes.
Bear spray. Carry it. Avoid carcasses, right? When you're out there. If you find a carcass, leave it alone. It could be any number of predators that are coming to that, but you don't want it to be a grizzly bear.
Definitely
you don't want
not.
it to be a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
And know what kind of scat they leave behind.
Okay.
That's
Be scat aware.
looks familiar. Anyway,
Know what kind of poop you're stepping in. There's a video online right now of some guys on motorbike going through the woods, and they scare a grizz, a big grizz. And this guy sort of bumps and hits, and he falls off his bike.
Oh, I've seen that video.
Oh, I don't know how new it is, but the other guys start revving. They rev their motorbikes up. Oh, really, really loud.
I'm thinking a different video actually.
They rev them up really loud, and that bear, because that bear's going after that biker. That guy who fell off his bike, he's scrambling backwards as fast as he can, and that bear is on a warpath. And the other guys on the motorbikes rev really, really loud.
It's a noise
and scare him away.
Bears hate noise. Make noise.
Yeah.
I find it irreverent of people who. I think the last podcast I talked about watching a video of a guy. The bear was getting in his hot tub, and he's just like, "Oh, the bear's in the hot tub," and I'm like, "Get out there and scare that thing away, man! Quit,
train it before it has to be euthanized.
Yeah,
train it to stay away from humans."
So I get it now. The starter pack is I guess just an ad here. I guess it's not gear, but there's gear indicated here with the bear spray. Yeah. Just make sure you have what you need to be safe and know what to do. Make lots of noise. Bears hate noise.
Yeah, and they can't hear bells. Bells are too high-pitched for grizzlies to hear. But still, some people still sell bear bells and believe in bear bells. It's crazy. Weird. Yeah. We'll have to follow up on ChatGPT to see.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Pioneer softshell rooftop tent. Tell me more.
This is just one of these gimmicks, people like to travel compact, and I guess there's an insulative value of sleeping on top of your car, but there's also value in not having to climb a ladder to go to bed.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to feel protected. You're probably going to feel a little bit safer being up above the ground. You know, we slept out in 55 and had the mountain lion tracks around the tent in the morning,
inches away from the tent.
I didn't feel threatened at all. I got a huge kick out of it.
I think because you talked about the way I snore out in the wild, I think I was snoring in a way the cat thought there was another cat purring. Yeah. And it just wanted to come check it out, but there was a tent in the way.
Yeah, when we hunt in the wintertime, calories are really, really important. So we have so much food in the tent.
Yeah.
And a ridiculous amount. Because we're not backpacking. We just got coolers, I got booze, I got hot cocoa, I got cheese and crackers, I got so many calories.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for a while I was intrigued by these tents on vehicles, but
yeah,
it didn't take me long to go,
well, yeah, why am I climbing a ladder? I'm in the West. I'm in wide open spaces. I could camp right next to the car and be able to make a getaway if I needed to. So
yeah, because I
a lot of the times we set up a tent and then we get in the truck and go, okay, here's where camp is. Now we'll be back later.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sorry, my brain went the wrong way with the getaway. Like here's a robber or there's a bear. Get in the car and drive away.
Yeah.
Both are valid.
That is what I meant. That is what I meant, right? If you're on top of your car and you need to make a getaway, it might be a little more precarious.
Yeah,
it might not be. So,
and I don't really have any more gear news there. I think that's it.
I think that was all.
There's a turf club article in here. I don't think that has anything to do with this.
Sorry about that.
But the elks. There's been elk meetings at the turf club.
Oh, sure.
Elks meetings. That's not what I'm trying to say. Conservation meetings and things like that.
For
Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation
RMEF,
things.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think, and I don't think there was anything else really pressing from Hunter's Ed, but what a fun experience to just go out and learn. And even if you, I'll finish with that. Something I forgot. So the combination of what I do in terms of psychology and mental health and gun safety. So I don't want this to be too much of a downer, but one of the things that we could use more of is individuals learning how to handle firearms safely.
Yeah,
and that was that was promoted by Dr. David Rudd, a presenter I saw a few weeks ago. He's a researcher and he studies suicidality, and treating suicide. And so one of the things that I had an opportunity to talk to him with just after the conference was about, how do we do better with reducing this? And he, in the conversation somewhere, he indicated we got to start younger. We got to help people understand safety, handling guns safely.
Yeah.
And he works at the University of Memphis in Tennessee primarily. And so as I was sitting in this class, I thought one of the things that the instructor said, he goes, so and so took a class from me. And they went out and got their animal, but they don't want to do it anymore. They want to kind of understand safety. They got a deer, but then it's just not for them, and that's fine.
Right.
And some people just want to take it to understand gun safety. And I thought, oh my gosh, is there a marriage here maybe to help people have the outlet they need to just learn gun safety?
Yeah.
And what does it mean? Because so often you can just grow into the system, get a weapon, and you don't really have any wherewithal on how to handle it, what it's capable of doing,
right?
And accidents occur.
And the whole process of trying to buy a weapon could be confusing. And I can understand if you're trying to put yourself in a first timer's shoes and going, well, where do I even start? What gun? And you don't want to ask too many questions, and you'll just end up buying the wrong thing.
But it's got a safety mechanism. We're fine, right?
Yeah, sure.
What is a safety mechanism? Dan, you be proud. Is it Dan? Yeah, I think it was Dan.
Yeah.
A safety mechanism is a mechanism that can and will fail. It should not be your trusted source for safety. There's other things you have to do.
Good line. Good line. Thanks, Dan.
Well, it's in the book too.
Of course. Good.
But it's also like muzzle control is gun safety. Where's that muzzle pointed?
All the time.
That's another one, Dan. So a lot of good stuff. And I think that if we sort of end on a positive, like, hey, you don't have to be a hunter to take these classes, but you can learn how to handle things safely if you just want to have firearms and you want to shoot, as Dan would say, paper targets. So there you go. That was what I was going to say earlier, and I almost forgot. So
all right, cool. Well, I'm glad you got to hunter safety, and
I'm excited for the future hunts.
We're gonna find out we're gonna have another weather forecast in a week.
Yeah.
We're also gonna have a couple days of plus 70 plus degrees where there is right now ice and snow.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have an update on that when we come back. And
fingers crossed, nothing bad happens. Hopefully, it goes slow and.
Yep. If it just melts slow enough, that's all. That's really what we have to worry about. So, all right. Until next time. Goodbye.
Cheers.